Hello everyone, or no one. Today I'm going to show you how to do authentication of users with Firebase. All you have to do is set up a Firebase account, which I will go through in a bit, and add two functions to your buttons. Also an event listener to show when the user is logged in and logged out, and when you refresh the page, all the user state is maintained. So as a quick demo, I'll click login, it redirects me. I choose my account, and I come back and you'll see that there is a user logged in. Here's all my details, and I can log out and the event listener is running, so every time the user changes, it logs there's no user or there is a user. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to do is head over to console.firebase.google.com. This is the Firebase console, obviously, and sign in with Google or whatever account you want, and it should bring you to this page. So I've already got two projects. I'm going to create a new one for this. So let's just call this Auth Test. And it gives you a unique ID. You can change this to whatever you want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The name is taken, so I'm just going to put some random stuff. Analytics I won't need for this project, but if you're building a production app and you want analytics, you should probably use this. And let the keys wheel fill up. So once that's done, we click continue, and it brings us to our new console. So I'm just going to create a Next.js app right now. So open up my terminal, create Next App Latest. And I'm also going to call this Auth Test. Just yes to everything. And once that's all done, we can then proceed into the folder itself. So I've called this Auth Test. Here it is. Open that in VS Code. And the first thing I'm going to do is delete the package lock and the node modules because I want to use yarn. So I'm just going to rerun. And while that's running, I'm going to go here. So it should have thrown you to this page, which is the overview page. We're going to create web, so create your first web app. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it Auth Test App. You can register that. It'd be better to call this something like web, something if you have like an iOS and an Android and a web. This one is purely for the web. And we want to copy all of this. So first I'm going to install Firebase in my app. And in here I'm going to create a new folder called Firebase and create a config.ts. So I'm going to copy all of this like so. Remove all the comments, and we're going to put this all in the environment variables because we don't want to just commit to our code like this. Anyone could hack our Firebase account. So let's do env.local. Take all of these. And since we're using Next.js, we have to name everything with a next public like that. And I'm going to capitalize everything. And now for TypeScript to understand how this works, we're going to create a folder here called types. And I'm just going to create a environment.d.ts. And in here, I'm going to declare global, the namespace node.js, and an interface process env. And within here, I'm going to put all my environment variables. And just change all of this to string. So now we've basically added a whole bunch of environment variables to our type space on process.env. So now if I do process.env, it should, in theory, once this saves, let's go here, process.env, and you can see all of these new environment variables. Kind of helps with autocomplete, because otherwise I might make a typo or something. So this makes my life a little bit easier. And we are also going to export this app. So So then back in here, we're going to continue to the console and we're going to head over to build and authentication. So let's click get started. And here's where you can choose all the different sign-in methods. You can have one, you can have multiple. For this example, I'm just going to use Google because it's pretty simple and click enable. So the public facing name for this project, you can call it whatever you want. This is the name and support email myself. I don't think we need to touch any of these. We can just click save. And just like that, we have Google enabled. So that's all we need to do on the console for now. If we ever wanted to add other sign-in methods, we could do so here, add new provider. We could do GitHub. For mobile apps, if you're writing an iOS app, you pretty much have to add Apple, sorry. Everyone who signs in, you'll see here. But let's just head back to the app for now. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create a global wrapper. So let's create a components folder. So this is going to be a client component where Firebase is going to be wrapped. And we will put that over here. Component wrapper. And we obviously have to add props. So let's add the children props. And we wrap our entire app in this client wrapper. Also within our config Firebase file, we're going to add auth. So let's import get auth from Firebase/auth and export that as well. And within our client wrapper, we're going to have a useEffect hook. And within here, we're going to add the onAuth state changed observer. So here we're going to pass in the auth from our config. And we also have to import this from Firebase/auth. And here, if there is a user signed in, they'll be in this block, otherwise they'll be in this block. So as soon as the whole app loads, it runs this hook, which then checks, which initializes this observer to check if there's a user or not. So within here, we can, for now, just console log the UID. I'm going to clear all these comments. And here, I'm going to write no user. And let's just run our app just to see if we are getting no user in our console. And it's telling me that there's the invalid API key, so I'm just going to console log the Firebase config itself and see if it's actually coming through. And everything's undefined, so our environment variables are not working for some reason. And I realized I made a stupid mistake here. These should all be equal signs, and there shouldn't be any of these, or any commas. I just copied it directly from the JavaScript. This should have fixed it, so let's try run it again. And there we go. So we see here that we have no user. And I of course shouldn't be console logging this anymore, but this is the no user we're looking for. We'll move on to the actual logging in and logging out. So let's go to our page and remove all of this stuff. And within here, we're just going to have a button that says log in and one that says log out. And then I'll just add some quick styling to make this not look so hideous, and we are left with this, a log out and a login button. And so within here, we're going to create two functions, const on login and const on logout. You can call this anything else. You could call it handle login. You could call it anything you want. So on here, we're going to add in on click and login. And here we're going to add on logout. And I've done it the wrong way, so on logout, on login. And since we used the Google login method, we're going to have to use the Google Auth provider, which also comes from Firebase/Auth. At this point, there's two things we can do. We can either sign in with a Popup, which is a pretty web-specific method, or we can sign in with a redirect, which is both web and mobile friendly. So the first one I'm going to show you is sign in with the Popup. So I'm just going to copy a bunch of code, and this, of course, has to be asynchronous. So if I console log user from function and add the user here, you can see that we call this method sign-in from Popup, which comes from Firebase/Auth, pass in the auth from our Firebase config, as well as the provider, and that'll create a pop-up. So that'll be stuck here in the await. If the user proceeds to log in, it'll get to here, and you can get all their credentials, their user token, their access token, as well as all the data. If you don't need these things, you could just comment these out. All we really need is the res.user. I'm just going to console log the entire res actually, so you can see what comes out of it. And let's head back to the website. And I'm getting this error here because this is a server component and we need the buttons to be interactable. So we're going to change this to a client component. Now I wouldn't recommend changing your entire page in a real app to a client component. I would pull these out separately and make that a client component, but for this simple example, I'm just going to make the whole thing client. So use client, and now let me clear the console. As you can see when I log in, it pops up. Then I'm going to log in with my email. And you can see here the result from the function. There's a user in here with all my details, which I should probably blur out. And if this was a real app, I would use something like Redux to store all of this data, or at least the parts that I need, for example, display name, email, and then use that across my app. So now technically our user is logged in, and if I refresh the page, I'll show you explicitly. If I go close the page and open it again, you should see the user is still there. So this is my user ID. I can prove that by going to the layout, the client wrapper, and I'm only logging the UID. So let's just log the entire user and refresh. You'll see all that user information. So every time I come back to this page, it'll keep me logged in. I can also log out, so let's work on that part now. If I go back to the page and I just add in here, sign out, exactly this. I could also import this directly from Firebase/Auth and then pass in the auth itself. That works too. So once we have this function, let's go to the console again, clear everything, and log out. You can see that there's no user. If I log back in, the user's there. Log out, no user. So now if I refresh the page, there shouldn't be a user. You can see no user. Perfect. This is a note. This can fail. There can be errors, and rather than crashing your app, you should wrap all of this with a try catch. I'll show you right now. If I go to my app and I'm currently logged out, if I try to log in and then I cancel this, you can see here there's a, sorry, let me close this. There's a Firebase error. So this is actually an error, which was caught in my catch block. And the error is just auth/cancel pop-up request. It's not a real error, it's just the user is canceling the login. So you shouldn't crash the app or throw a real production error, hence catching the error here. Now for the sign-in with redirect, it's a little bit easier. You can just do that. And you'll see now, if I go to the page and I click login, it throws me to another page. Choose an account to sign in. Same thing as usual. and then I'm logged in. There's my user. This is a little bit more mobile friendly, so if you're building an app that's mobile first, I suggest you use sign in with redirect. You can also do like a query. If the screen is this big, use redirect. If it's even bigger, use Popup. Completely up to you. And just to finish up, I want to show you that if you go back to Firebase users, you can now see that there is a user here. If you ever wanted to reset the user completely, you can just go here, disable, delete the account. You can even reset password if there's an email password sign-in method. For example, this email/password. You can go here, if someone forgot their password, just reset it. Nice and simple. So I know that was a super quick video, but I hope that helped. I know Firebase is really good for just building hackathon style apps really, really quickly. You can set up a database, you can set up users all within a few hours. If you have any questions on how I did anything or anything about Firebase or authentication or anything I missed, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.